Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another edition of Stars, Stripes, and Anfield Nights. Happy to have everyone joining us today. If you have any questions or comments, please get them in the chat and we'll bring them up throughout the stream. First off, I have Toby and Brandon with me. Toby, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. I'm feeling good. We're in for a good show. Starting off the international break, with even a win. Before we get any further into the story, I want to give or into the show. I want to give a shout out to the city of Liverpool and what they did for Zoe's place. What they did, the community, um, athletes, former athletes, Steven Gerrard, Robbie Fowler, and I do believe current athletes too, like Trent Alexander-Arnold. What they did to help save that place and raise up enough money to keep it going. It's just phenomenal. It really just shows you the power of community and just how important it is in today's society.
100%, Toby. That was the story when it broke. I was very happy to see, and regardless, for example, for me, seeing Trent put money into it, like I think that's the kind of reminders that we need, where it's like there's stuff bigger than football, and to see the community come behind for this cause, it's great to see that. And on that positive note, Brandon, how are we doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. Enjoying my day off. I'm glad to be here. Yeah, I'm just ready to get into the show. I guess I'm not as, I guess, chatty as I usually am at the start of the show. So I'm ready to dig in some topics. It's my favorite time of the year, which is the international break. If you listen to the show enough, you know I just absolutely love international football. It's just like my favorite thing in the world. So I'm so glad there's 2 weeks of not real football to watch.
Oh yeah, we got three for three now. We got September, October, and November. Just when you're starting to love the Premier League action, Champions League action, we get the Nations League coming up, and then other international friendlies. But just want to say a quick hello. Thank you, Sam, Jake, Jay Muse, as always. And I'll start bringing up comments throughout the stream uh, when we get to the topics, or if you have any questions, again, please do throw them in the chat and we'll bring them up. Jake says top of the league, and yes, definitely not only just top of the league, a couple points to spare. So really nice to going into this international break. You know, fingers crossed we're as lucky as we have been with injuries through previous international breaks. Before we jump into the topics, Toby, how are you feeling about where we're heading into this international break? Liverpool's position in the Champions League and Premier League, obviously at the top of the table, but at this stage of the season, how are you feeling about that? And what what do you think? Like, where are you sitting on that topic? Are you getting excited? Are you keeping a little cautious? How are you feeling about it?
So normally I come on these streams and I complain about international breaks. I absolutely hate them. Hell, even the last international break, I think I fell into a depression just because I couldn't watch Liverpool football. But I think this time around, I think it's a much needed international break. I know we're picking up some injuries here. I can't think of off the top of my head exactly who, but I just think right now be a good time, a good stopping point for us to kind of catch a break, take a deep breath in, take it all in, and hopefully get you know back in form, get the players back that we need. We've heard recently that Salah's going to be staying, so that's great. Trent, he's got that injury, so he'll be staying too. And Jude Bellingham cannot convince him or make any selling points of Real Madrid. So yeah, I'm kind of relieved that we're here at the third international break, and I just think it's a much needed one.
Yeah, I'm not as like annoyed with this international break and timing, other than the fact it's the third in 3 months, because I think we had a long stretch of games, like high intense games. This was the one that everyone thought we'd fumble over. So, or that period of matches, and we came through pretty clean. Just the draw with Arsenal, which looking back is a solid point. But yeah, as you said, like the likes of Salah staying in camp, Trent also resting as well. Hopefully, he'll be back when the international break is over. But it's yeah, it's I'm not as annoyed about this international break. And quickly wanted to mention from the chat, Jake, I'm seeing your question. Blessed Sinner, I'm seeing your question as well. And I have Fabi's question as well pinned. I'll bring them up as we approach those topics a little later in the show. But thank you for putting them in the chat. And anyone else who has questions, please throw them in and we'll get to them. Brandon, how are you feeling about the position of the team at this stage in the season before the international break? Are you cautiously optimistic or are you over the moon?
I'm absolutely over the moon right now with this team. Like, absolutely outperforming anything we really could have hoped for. Being top of the league at the moment and being the only perfect team in the Champions League. We're the only team that's gotten 4 wins out of 4. Like, the fact that we have went from strength to strength, growing from clop to slot, has just been, more than you could have hoped for. But I am kind of with Toby. Like, this is an international break that I'm not actually that upset about. Like, just because it gets, like, we're going to have Harvey Elliott's going to get back to training. He's going to get maybe a little bit more back into the squad. Staying healthy. Obviously, Trent leaves the game this past weekend, but we're going right into an international break. So it's not like we're going to be missing him for Real Madrid, Man City and stuff, or we might possibly be missing him, but it's not like we're facing them this week where it could be, massive misses. So, I mean, it's a good time. It's the best time to be a Liverpool fan, though. When you're at the top of the league looking down, it's always, those times where you're always going to get excited because that's where we belong as top of the league. We should never really be like shocked that we're up there. We should always expect to be up there.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think it is interesting that not as many pundits put us up for the challenge prior to the league starting. It was kind of like a push with the league with Klopp last year. I think it all comes down to like people not knowing what slot would bring, but certainly have the quality and like you said yourself, and I agree. Shouldn't be surprised that we're challenging, and it's nice to even have a little bit of breathing room at the top of this stage. Long may that continue. Another quick shout out, bringing from the chat, Abdul. Thank you for your comment. Definitely appreciate it. Hello to you. And let's see. And chat as well. How are you feeling about the international break? Is this as annoying for you as it is for us? But as we said, we're not as annoyed for this one. Do you think this break is actually nice for Liverpool to kind of get some players some rest, to reassess and then come back for the next string of games? Or are you just annoyed that we're having another international break? Please put your answers in the chat and we'll bring them up. But while waiting for that, we can move on to a question that is probably gonna, as we've kind of said this before, so I'm not too happy about how the contract situations have progressed or haven't progressed since we've brought it up last. And we're getting November, probably blink of the eye. After this international break, we'll be back December and January when other clubs, foreign clubs outside of England, can start pre-contract negotiations with Trent, Virgil van Dijk, and Salah. So the closer that clock ticks, the more anxious I'm getting. But Toby, how are you feeling about the contract situation? So the news that I have highlighted for Trent and Salah is that a Spanish outlet, Cadena Ser, says that Real Madrid knows that he is not going to renew his contract, that Trent is not going to renew his contract with Liverpool, and is willing to offer him a 4-year contract with a salary in the second tier of the squad for Real Madrid. We'll start with Trent and discussing him. How do you think there's any credibility, or do you think this is Spanish news channels making noise, or do you get the kind of inclination that this actually might be the last season we see Trent?
So I'm gonna go with probably the least popular answer here. I don't know. Um, Silence says a lot, right? We haven't heard much about Trent and the contract negotiations all season, I want to say. Um, and I understand fans are getting anxious about it. We're hearing all these links to Real Madrid and how, oh, he's probably going to sign there, yada, yada, yada. But the truth is, I don't know. FSG, they're pretty tight-lipped with all that stuff. So I think that's one thing that's going for them, if we want to be optimistic. But yeah, the trend is just a weird scenario. I mean, I feel more confident about Salah and Virgil resigned than Trent, but like just because of all this back and forth, I mean, with him and Real Madrid and hearing nothing on the Liverpool side, um, I understand. I completely understand why Liverpool fans feel anxious, why you feel anxious, Drew. And let us know in the comments what y'all think about this. All the players really, where we stand on the contract negotiations.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely that I don't know stage at this point. I feel like all his interviews in the past have been like leaning one way or the other, a bit contradictory. We've talked about that in previous streams, but Jake sees Trent staying for one more season. I'm wondering if Liverpool like sign him to a new contract with a release clause or something along the lines of that. Maybe give him an out. That's definitely not their style to add the release clause. But Brandon, how are you feeling about Trent specifically in his contract negotiations? And do you think this injury that he just experienced, hopefully not too long, doesn't seem like it will be. Do you think there's a thought in the back of his head that that's like one severe injury from being left really with not many options in terms of power of contract negotiation.
That's my biggest worry when it comes to like Trent's situation. He hasn't played the best this season. His defensive work has been much improved. I've always felt like the Trent is a bad defender argument's more dumb, but he's been a very good defender. I think this year for the most part. I thought like the Brighton game is like the number one where he was outstanding defensively. Offensively, he's been much more poor than Trent usually is. Um, his contract situation is so weird that I'm worried that with that injury, that if he is more planning on leaving, where's his effort levels going to be moving forward? It's like, yeah, because as you said, Drew, if he's getting a big injury right before he could sign a big contract with Madrid, like, is he going to go into a tackle that he thinks is 50-50, or is he going to pull out? You know, Liverpool's going to survive long after Trent, no matter if he stays or goes. So obviously, if he does go, I wish him the best. He put in incredible performances. Leaving on free is probably not the best, but at the same time, you can blame both the player and the club in this situation. Like, he could have probably pushed for a new contract a couple years ago. The club should have been pushing for a new contract a couple years ago. A player of his age and his caliber, like, how have we got to this point, and how we got to this point on three different players? That's issues we could talk about all day about how we've gotten to this point. But yeah, Trent is the situation that really worries me the most, because I think he kind of has to sign. It's so nice having the boy from Liverpool in the team. It is so important to kind of have that connection to the town as well. Like, yeah, we can bring in all the big names all you want, but a kid that's lived it. There's that commercial for his what do they call him? His sneakers, not his cleats or whatever, where it shows him like watching the 2005 Champions League and all that. To have that type of player in the team is so important. You got to have that connection with the city. So Trent is extremely important to get this deal done. I still think Virgil was the one that has to get done more than anything. Like, you have to get Virgil van Dijk signed. Mo is the one that, I mean, be very tough to replace his numbers, but I think he's kind of the one that, of the three, if you had to put a gun to my head, Salah's the one I'd rather let leave. I really would not, but he'd be the one. But yeah, Virgil has to get done, and I think Trent's got to get done, just because it's just such a message to the fans of like, we're keeping the hometown kid. We're not letting him walk. And I know it's a big deal to go play for Madrid. It's a huge deal when you're an English guy to have the stature to go to Madrid. But I think it's far more impressive when you're Stevie G than when you're Gary Lineker, who played for Barcelona or something like that. It's like, it's much more impressive to be the one team or the one club player outside of the LA Galaxy nonsense.
I totally understand where you're coming from, Brandon, and I'm big on that. Like, players for the club being Liverpool fans or from the city. I think that's worth like an extra 10% at the very least in terms of effort and performance, just because they know what it means. The club means so much more. That always to go back to that marketing phrase that FSG used. I think it was like 5 years ago, but this means more. And they've done a lot contentious and debatable in their tenure, but this means more. Absolutely nailed what it feels like to be a Liverpool supporter. And I think the players from the city themselves carry that same energy, like you said. I'm wondering, we do have Curtis Jones. We got a few youngsters in the squad breaking through. Harvey Elliott's a fan, Kwanzaa, so I'm not as like if we lose Trent, especially with Curtis's performances this season, could be that breakthrough. I'm just wondering if Trent's just like you said, just the Real Madrid calling. He's already achieved everything with with Liverpool, and it is that kind of age where it feels like going back to when you mentioned Gerrard, that was when he was getting like tempted by Chelsea, almost signed there, and then his family basically sat him down, talked him straight, and pulled him off that ledge. But there is that pull, I imagine, at that age where this could be his chance to move on. But uh, Toby Brandon said that was it, Virgil van Dijk was number one, Trent was number two, and Salah was the one that potentially he'd let go out of if that was the option. Where is that ranking for you? And we'll introduce Salah's contract news into this situation now. So reports are there's one that just recently came out before we streamed. I don't know about its reliability on it, but it's James Wakeland. It's getting the rounds on Twitter, but it says Mohamed Salah is sure about staying at Liverpool. Liverpool is sure they want him to stay. The talks are around a 3-year contract until 2028 with the same salary. Salah wants a huge signing on fee, but they will come to agreement. That I don't know about the validity. The earlier reports were that they're in negotiations, but they're far apart on the contract talks, and I'm sure that's down to money. So that's introducing the Salah side to the contract, but building off Brandon's hierarchy of players staying. What is your personal hierarchy? How do you think this needs to go, or who do you think is most important to sign on for a contract?
Okay, so as far as like hierarchy goes, I do agree with Brandon on the first one, Virgil. Second, a kind of a toss up for me because yes, Trent is the homegrown talent. He is the future. He is basically the core, right? The person that they or the player that they want to build the team around. But we can't forget about Salah. There's something in me like I guess it's because I have personal bias, but and he is my favorite player on the team. But also, I think personally, I think he's Liverpool's biggest playmaker. I mean, I was just looking some statistics here. Yeah, on FB reference and sheesh, let me see. Mo Salah, he has an SCA 90 of 4.52 and a GCA 90 of 0.83. I mean, there are some pretty impressive numbers if you ask me. I think the only other player that comes close that gets just as much amount of playing time as he does is Diaz. I mean, with the SCA 90 of 5.12. But I kind of go back to what I see. Not just numbers, but the eyeball test as well. And just what I've noticed over the last couple games is that in the first half, I want to say Arsenal, maybe Chelsea. I don't know. Over the last couple games, I've noticed in the first half, Salah doesn't get the ball as much. Well, in the second half, he does. Right. So I guess that team might been or their opponents might be taking him away or whatever. But I'm of the belief is when Salah gets the ball, good things happen. I mean, he, as I just said earlier, he is, in my opinion, Liverpool's biggest playmaker. So, and like, I would also argue that with Salah, you don't really have a replacement for him, do you? Like, you have well, maybe you can have Diaz, but like, I don't know. That one's yet to be seen. Chiesa, I know. Jake mentioned it earlier on Chiesa. Yeah, need to be back after the international break. I do have a quote on for that, by the way. Maybe we can talk about that later. But I would argue with Chiesa as well. Like, we really haven't seen him this year, and like, I'm not even sure how reliable he is. At least, like with both Virgil and Trent, like we do have a solidified backup um for them. But with Salah, I'm not even sure if we do per se. I mean, I'm curious to hear what you and Brandon, I mean Drew and Brandon have to say about this.
For me, I put Virgil and Salah kind of on the same tier. I used to still, I'll keep it on that. I used to say Virgil number one, just because of the stability that he brings to defense. Like you hear about how every other player talks about him, how the pundits talk about him. You see it for yourself. As a Liverpool supporter, he is absolutely class, the composure that he brings. Konate has actually come into the conversation and has raised his levels on Virgil van Dijk so far this season. But Virgil is still that guy. He is the guy in defense. And I think he's at least 2 more years at that same level. And for me, it's the same with Salah. I think, like as you're saying, Toby, the numbers don't lie. And for me, like I think he can get criticized when he isn't involved in the game. I know the Liverpool as a team haven't always had the best first halves, but have grown into the game moving forward, or second half at the very least when they start firing. That's hasn't always been the problem, but I think regardless, Salah's stats are there to be seen, and they haven't diminished. Like his entire Liverpool career, I think his worst season was like 19 goals in the Premier League. Like that's insane. And it doesn't look like his levels are dropping. The way his fitness levels are always amazing. I think at worst he's had like a downturn of form after the African Cup of Nations like once or twice. But like his output alone is worth signing on for another year or two. That level of output is elite, is top quality, and no one else on the team has stepped up in that fashion yet. No one's taken the crown from him, if you will. And until he has shown signs where he's moving on in terms of his ability to challenge at the top level, I don't think there's any reason to not give him at least a 2-year contract. But we'll see. Brandon, do you have any other thoughts? First off, in the chat again, we'll ask you as well. What are your thoughts on priorities of signing Trent, Salah, and Virgil? What is just the order of your preference? Who do you think is most important to our team going forward? And Brandon, let's see. Do you have any other comments for Salah in terms of his contract? And would you still see him as a top earner, the top earner at the club with the contract renewal potentially in the works? Do you see that as a worthwhile to keep him up on that level?
I believe so, because I mean the name of the game is scoring goals, and there's nobody better than Mo in the Premier League. I'm going to put some just read some numbers just to debunk myself on saying he's the one we should let go, because it's the Premier League put out something as a graph today of goal involvement since Bruno Fernandes's Man United debut, and it's like Son Heung-min at 133, Kevin De Bruyne at 139, Bruno at 155, then all the way at the top you have Mo Salah with 198. Like over that time, there's nobody better in the Premier League. And that question was like, is Bruno's underrated? I'm like, I think Mo's is actually way underrated for how people talk about him, because every other week he's washed or he's done. I think it's such a tough thing. I think if you are signing him, he's got to be top earner. He's got to be, because like I said, name of the game is scoring goals. You got to score goals to win games. Like Virgil does everything he does. It's incredible. We take for granted the fact he's like 8, 9 out of 10 every single week. We take that for granted. I feel like he's never in man of the match conversation because it's so expected that he's that good all the time. But Salah's consistency, I'm with you, Drew. I think there's another year, 2 years where he's still scoring 25 goals a season in all competitions. And his playmaking assist system will add a lot more assists. I think his touch is starting to go a little bit. There's times where he kind of kills an attack with a bad touch, or doesn't get the ball right on his feet. It's there, like kind of the decline might start being there, but I think it's still worth having a guy that scores or contributes goals that consistently in the team. And we're not talking about giving him $500,000 a week. We're not talking about giving him a Frankie de Jong contract that's going to cripple the club if he gets hurt or completely falls off a cliff. And I think the money's always going to be there for Mo. I don't think everybody keeps saying Saudi. I keep saying on here, I don't think that's his ambition. I think his ambition is still win the Ballon d'Or. I think that's what he wants more than anything, is to win the Ballon d'Or. He's not going to win it if he moves to Saudi. So if he's going anywhere, he's staying in Europe, in my opinion. But that's a different conversation. But yeah, I probably just debunked myself. It's probably now Virgil, Mo, and Trent if I had to rank them. But that'll probably be different tomorrow, or probably different in 20 minutes if you ask me again.
That's fair. It's definitely depends on what we hear, what we see, how the players are performing. Definitely has a recency bias, but I think those numbers, when you see them, it's hard to argue a Salah impact on the team. And as you were saying earlier, Trent, if anything, is going forward hasn't been as good as it has in the past. Maybe that's the slot system, but we'll certainly see what develops over the next few weeks. Hopefully, some positive news. Hopefully, one of them signs by the time we get back from international break. But I'm not holding my breath.
Hey, do you mind me making a comment? So just kind of add fuel to the fire. Virgil basically has already said, it's already implied that he wants to stay. Salah, it kind of seems like he wants to stay. Where's Trent in this conversation? Why haven't we really? I mean, I'm sure he wants to stay, but we haven't really heard anything about it, right? So where is he? And I think it's something worth thinking about as well.
Yeah, that's something I've been annoyed at. In turn, let me see if I can go back to it's John's comment. Trent wants the captaincy to stay. Um, I don't think he's behaving like a future captain at the moment. Uh, in particular, I don't know how much is up to him, but the interviews that he's given in the previous month, it seemed like there for like 1 or 2 weeks, there's like 3 or 4 interviews where he was talking about like the Ballon d'Or being the most important thing for him. Saying at first that trophies don't matter, and then saying in another interview that he doesn't want to be the guy that's known for winning trophies when he was younger and not ever winning them again. So I think there's a lot of contradiction, and just to take it like, don't want to give too much into it. I just think it's not a good taste, but he's got a lot to figure out, and we'll see if he ends up deciding to stay at Liverpool while he's figuring out. But CJ here has a comment about, I'm thinking Trent Alexander-Arnold wants to be the highest paid on the club. That also affects the Salah contracts because he's current highest. Yeah, I think that was a big one we've all discussed in our group chat, is how much he's potentially worth per week. And I'll add this. Thank you for the comments, CJ, because this opens another avenue to talk about. Toby and Brandon, I'll bring it to you first. But like, I personally was always saying he doesn't, like, a right back should not be being paid at Liverpool more than like 200, 225 a week. But do you think he deserves anything more than that, up on like 250, 300,000, approaching like Salah levels?
It's a tough question, because you can say that, right back doesn't deserve that. Trent's not just a right back. He's the most unique weapon in world football. Like his dead ball delivery from out wide is just, we've seen it for however long now. Like his delivery, his be able to whip the ball in. If he's adding defensive stability also at the back, I don't know. It's a tough one to say. I don't want to break the FSG kind of pay structure for Trent. I don't think he's that level. Like, I know he's talking about the Ballon d'Or. I don't see where he goes to Madrid and wins a Ballon d'Or. I don't see, because Vinny's now the guy there. He's the guy that they're always going to push. Like, no matter if he's the best player or not, he's going to be the guy that's going to be on top of the Ballon d'Or votes list for Real Madrid. They have a much better chance of winning it here than he will there, is what I'm saying. But being the highest paid player at the club, I don't think you can justify that. I don't think you can justify paying him more than Virgil or Mo. I just, as unique as he is and as great as Trent is, I just don't think you can justify him being the highest paid player on the team. Like, if they both left, yeah, sure, because he's would be the captain, I think, at that point, if Virgil and Mo left, and I'd bawl myself to sleep every single night if they left on freeze, but at the same time. So they really need to get this done for my mental health, before the end of the year. Maybe a Christmas present. Maybe they can redo the Virgil whenever he signed, on Christmas or whatever that year from he signed Southampton. They can just redo that picture, but then Mo can also do his yearly Christmas picture with the new contract. And then, I don't know, Trent can do one as well. We can have a great, wonderful Christmas, and we'll all go into the new year as happy as we could ever be.
Yeah, that's fair, and hopefully we get some Christmas presents or whatever holiday presents you want for that contract. I'm sure would be nice for all. Robert Maguire, real quick. Love Trent, but he should not be getting paid higher than Mo. His assists dropped off massively this season. We require players who are dedicated to the team, fight for their place, willing to give their all for the club. Professionalism, commitment are essential qualities we seek in our players. Abdul, right backs cannot be the highest paid. Zia, after my own heart there. But I do take in what Brandon says about Trent's quality and what he offers is not can't just be typically classed into the right back. He's more than that. But for me, I always say too, like Andy Robertson was neck and neck with him for assists. He's a lot older, so he's definitely not getting that money. But I just can't justify Trent getting paid like higher than 200 grand, especially at his stage in his career. What's the next contract going to be unless he signs for like a 5-year contract? But Toby, do you have any different opinion on that? Do you think Trent deserves, with everything he's done for the club, his potential for growth, the quality of player that he is and his potential future captaincy? Do you think that deserves any more money or top billing?
So I agree with both you and Brandon about Trent being more than kind of a right back. He's a very unique player. He has beautiful passes. I mean, he can pass the ball, and like his defense has improved this year. As far as like paying him goes, to be honest, I don't really know. I don't think we could. I could justify that as well. It all depends on FSG's vision and Arne Slot's vision for the future, right? Like what they want to do going forward and where they want to spend that money. They say if you want to be successful, you need to know why you're doing it and like who you're going to do it with, and I think how you're going to do it. I can't remember that last part, but like the who is very important is very important. So does the FSG and Arne Slot see Trent part of the future, or they they don't?
It's definitely, I feel like Slot's already going to get more say on how he wants to build the team moving forward. And I'm sure he'll talk with the players. And it seems like he's giving them a fair shake. I mean, one of the interviews or quotes around Trent that came out was praising how Slot took him aside and positively coached him, not drawing like any negatives or like criticizing his game, was made a little adjustment comment, and Trent really appreciated that. All the word coming out from the players is that Slot's been really great. So it will be interesting to see how Slot wants to shape the team moving forward, and if he sees the contract situation of Trent, Salah, and Virgil as priorities or not. So hopefully, as Brandon said, we find out soon, because it is not fun to keep talking about this as it goes on. Before we move on to the next segment tonight, just really wanted to appreciate everyone who's been in the comment section, everyone who's watching. We really, really do appreciate everyone who joins us on these Star Stripes and Anfield Night streams. Brandon, Toby, and I are regulars, and you guys participating really means a lot. So thank you all for watching. And if you have any questions or comments, please throw them in the chat. I've started a bunch from previous. So Jake, Abdul, and CJ, I have a couple of yours pinned on the side that will bring up towards the end of the streams. So, this isn't like a laughing matter, but I'm laughing because of how incredulous it is. But it only came out yesterday. It's still, there's radio silence from some areas of the football community, but David Coote's minute and a half, just absolute bonehead, incredulous, like appalling, abhorring, like this Premier League ref coming out and calling Jurgen Klopp a C word, saying Liverpool's shit. And the guy he's with saying, like, we hate Scousers at the end. Like, unforgivable. Right now, I'm seeing that Howard Webb said we became aware of a video being circulated on social media. We were taking very seriously. Full investigation ongoing. And then David Coote has been suspended, immediate effect, pending the outcome of the investigation. There's not much more I can say at this stage until we work through the investigation. I mean, there has to be an investigation. I'm not going full-blown conspiracy mode here, but personally, I just absolutely it just sucks to see at that level something like this happening. I don't think it's full conspiracy. I don't think he's refereeing planning to screw Liverpool over in every game he coaches with them, but unconscious biases, if you don't like someone, chances are you're going to see something different. But Brandon, what has been your whole experience upon seeing the video, and what's going on in the aftermath?
Well, I guess James Milner came out smelling like roses because he says he likes Milner. So I'm not shocked at all that David Coote is not a fan. I don't know. I think I probably said Coote is a C word in the chat maybe a couple times when watching him ref a Liverpool game, because it's been there. And I'm not sure if he's talking about the post game press conference from Klopp after that Burnley game is kind of the starting point of him he took a pop at me. Klopp's not really that bad to him in that interview, after that game. He says, yeah, we weren't, we're very unhappy with the official, but obviously we didn't take care of business, was kind of the crux of what Klopp said after the game. Yeah, he said something about the ref, but I mean, could you imagine what Paul Tierney might say behind closed doors about Klopp? The war of words they had, or really the very public feud those two had. I'm not shocked. I'm also not a conspiracy theorist, but I'm with you. The whole conscious bias that could be part of those games. But we're also talking about some big moments in the VAR situation, with the Odegaard dribbling the basketball last year during our game. This really does cost. And I know I've seen some people saying it's okay if you're in private saying this amongst your friends. I'm like, I guess it's okay, but at the same time, it's you've got to be as unbiased as possible. And PGMOL just has got to be completely restructured. Howard Webb's got to go. Most of them have to go. They got to get somebody in there who's going to actually whip them in the shape and say, it's unacceptable, the boys club you guys have here, and how much you guys have each other's back. I remember it was last year whenever they were having a really bad time with VAR, every single week there was some big issue with VAR and a bad call was being made, then VAR was making it even worse. And I think it was Mike Dean was on one of the pundit shows and says, well, you don't want to step on the other guy's toes. It's that's what you're there for. That's what you're there for. So I'm not shocked at all that one of these guys has got some bias against Liverpool, because they probably got bias against other teams. I mean, it's just an absolute, I'm going to say S show. I'm going to try to censor myself since David Coote couldn't censor himself. So yeah, it's an absolute garbage show over there when it comes to officiating. So I'm not super shocked that one of these refs let something fly. I'm surprised he let it fly when he's, as high as he was on whatever he was on. And then, having the awareness to be at the end say, don't show this to anybody, please.
It was one of the night out, whatever he was doing, that brief glimpse of the repercussions of his actions. Don't share this with anyone you can't share. And they're let's not ruin this man's career. It's I don't know. I agree with you though. What you're saying, the thing was Mike Dean came out and was basically oh, it's a shame this came out, and the saying behind this closed door. It's I don't you could be upset. Let's say it's really, hey, I did not appreciate Klopp getting in my face, but you said, it's almost like the boys club where they're just looking after each other, making excuses, and then just that kind of attitude. You should Klopp did get in refs' faces. He did yell, but that's part of the game. That's where I don't understand. They're just some of the rules that they're doing, the kicking the ball away rule. They're making it a lot harder on themselves, and part of their jobs, part of their responsibility is to be able to handle that pressure. And if you're having an ego collapse because someone yelled at you over a decision, it's that's part of the job, and it's just it's terrible to see. But Robert in the chat. Yep.
Oh, sorry. Just could you imagine if you had to deal with Jose Mourinho? Like how much he used to be all over officials? Like he would have probably cried in the middle of the field. Like Mourinho was far worse than Klopp ever was to officials. Or if you had to manage a game where like Barcelona's not playing well against one of the lower Spanish teams, like how much they would be all over him, or being surrounded by Spanish players asking for cards every 5 seconds. Like, and the whole his career's over. His career's not over. He can go. He can come to the MLS. He can go to Saudi. He can go to other leagues and like ref. I don't think anybody's going to do anything about. Like, I don't think anybody would be that upset. He just shouldn't man it like a ref in England anymore, because it's obviously, especially with the guy at the end saying I hate Scousers, he can't do anything with Preston. He can't do anything with Tranmere. He can't do anything with teams from that area. That simple. So I mean, you can't trust him to do any of those games now. So I mean, his career's over is kind of an overstretch. His career's over in England, and it's deserved to be. You can't be that way. Sorry. I'm sorry that he loses a bit of livelihood, but you do stupid things happen to you.
Totally agree with that, Brandon. And that, yeah, I'm totally disappointed with the reaction or lack of reaction. Like, haven't heard any word from Jamie Carragher, Gary Neville on this. And it just goes into that like perpetuation that like Sky Sports is, or like people are trying to assist the refs. And I think that's where transparency needs to come in. Like, why are you trying to like hide over how big a deal this is? Robert McGuire in the chat saying Coote let himself be recorded by a person, left himself open to be blackmailed for match fixing. I might be the extreme side of it, but you have a point. It's like, who knows, like, like give 5 minutes extra time or like instead of 4 or something like that so this dude can make a bet. Like, that's an easy like thing that could happen, or it leaves yourself open to questions. And regardless, I don't personally think there is probably good blackmail involved, but who knows? But yeah, it's just like going back to what you're saying, Brandon, like the accountability, like Howard Webb, he was not really the handling of it's been really weird. But Toby, what are your overall thoughts on this, and how big an incident do you think it actually is?
So yeah, I know I've been saying this word a lot tonight, but I'm gonna stick with this because I've been thinking about it all day. To be honest with you, I don't even know what to make of it. It's crazy how it came out. Kind of want to go back to Robert's comment. I'm highlight that first part. Cootie let himself be recorded by a person and left himself open to be. Well, we'll stop right there with the himself part. Yeah, that kind of goes to show like be careful who you put your trust in, right? Because you never know what's going to happen. And let alone for him to be on camera, on camera saying that stuff, it's kind of mind-boggling. On like what Brandon said, whatever he was on, just quite mind-boggling. But yeah, shouldn't be. Well, we all have opinions. I know we do. We just keep them in the chat. He shouldn't have let somebody recorded him say that. That's just god awful. And I know at the end he said, "Oh, just make sure that doesn't come out." But kind of proves the point. Like you shouldn't have been on camera saying something like that if you know that could have gotten you in trouble. Sure, you could make the argument he was messed up on something, but I still always should be careful. And Colin, shout out to you, man. Miss you. Hope to see you next week, man.
I hear what you're saying, Toby. I'm still like, I think Mike Dean was saying like it's a shame like that the recording came out. For me, it's like I don't think it's like as big a like the whole system, like corruption, like all that kind of things. But for me, it's like you shouldn't like how are you hanging out with people who are like we hate Scousers, like that kind of company slash like the recording, yeah, recording yourself saying something stupid, but just the whole way he was like going about it. And I guess, whatever he was on doesn't make his decision making faculties at their highest. So I don't know. I'm just curious to see how they deal with this moving forward. Brandon, I agree with you on how you said like his refereeing career isn't over. Like he could go to the US. I doubt many people in the US, other than like 10% of the Premier League watching population would know who he was in the US. But
love coming to Columbus because I would love to be I'll be in that crowd giving it to him every single second of that game.
Yeah, 100%. I think it would be funny to see kind of what came of that from the people who did. But yeah, Liverpool 12th man. Comments like that, definitely. I guess his German comments were not, along the lines, but certainly prejudiced, and yeah, no excuse, in my opinion. The city coming up with asking for Coote's head is missing the point. We're letting the PGMOL scapegoat him when we need to address the main issue. Coote isn't corrupt. English officiating is just poor overall. And I believe that's kind of what you were alluding towards earlier, Brandon. Just the regulation around the PGMOL, like Howard Webb, the boys club. It just seems like they're protecting each other. They're making it harder on themselves when really we need transparency and process that isn't covered up by the same people who are managing it. Like it's a breeding place for mistakes and poor self-assessment, really. But how do you? What do you think? What do you think needs to happen to rectify this situation moving forward, or at least the questions that it asks about the PGMOL?
Well, kind of like I said, you guys got to burn it down, kind of, because it's done nothing but really harm officiating in England even more than it was before. Like I feel like officiating in the last 5 years has went just off a cliff. Like it's ever since the introduction of VAR, it's like there's some problems in other countries with VAR every once in a while, but nothing like it is in England. In England, it's just absurd. And I don't know if it's just, I think it's just that boys club. You just have to do something about that. You got to root that kind of stink out. One, they have to separate it. You can't have the VAR team also be the referees. You need to have that be separate. You need to have like people who are VAR specialists. Then you have the guys who are officiating on the pitch. You can't have them crossed over, because last year what they kind of blamed that Louis Diaz offside that was actually onside. Blamed as well. He was tired from his traveling. You shouldn't be refereeing a game midweek and then trying to do that. Well, one, it's dumb reasoning. It was plain as day. All you had to do was say, we're checking for offside, right? And then he'd say, no, we're checking to see if he's onside. That's a completely different thing. And kind of like you were talking about with Sky Sports, how they wouldn't show that replay. I think during they wouldn't show the replay during the game, and they wouldn't show the replay at halftime because they knew they had screwed up. They didn't want anybody to like really get on top of the refs. Like they just kept us from going top against Tottenham. They cost us 2 points, big time, at least. Maybe who knows how the season goes, getting lost. But yeah, like you gotta just burn PGMOL down, restart, like especially outside like forces. They don't need to be all English. Like bring in guys who are the best at their job. I will say, I think the guy that refereed the Brighton game a couple weeks ago, the Premier League game, I can't remember who it was. I thought he did a really good job. So I'm not saying all refs in England are horrible. I thought he did a good job. There might be another game where I thought he was horrible, but I thought he was really good. He let the game be very physical. I kind of like Kavanaugh. I think he's all right. I don't think he's the worst. I like the fact that in the League Cup final last year, he waited till Joe Gomez kicked the ball to finally like blow for wasting time. So it let us waste even more time. And then he blew didn't even like add the time on the end. So we got the end of the game right on like the 121st minute. I've always enjoyed that about him. No, I'm not here for a long time. I'm here to end this game right now. Liverpool with the cup. So I think like Kavanaugh, there's a couple good ones. You can still build around them, but there's just too much rot in there. There's just like the Coots, Hoopers. I'm trying to remember all of them. Like there's too many to name. Just like you see them like it's in for a long day. Tierney's probably the big one as well. Like there's too many to name. You've just got to get the deadwood out. Get the deadwood out. Start building it back up, because right now it is in such a bad place and nobody trusts the officiating, and they're not going to touch. Like I think as the city says, it's not. They're going to let Coote fall on the sword here. A lot of them need to be falling on the sword on this one, because they're not the only one that feels that way, and it may not be all Liverpool, but it's about a lot of them. There's a lot of bias in this league from the officiating.
Yeah, it's definitely tough. Like I think like when you hear the refs this season, they're announcing like they had to reveal publicly, I guess, or they were releasing the public who the refs supported. It's like all these like League One sides. It's like that's not who they're all supporting. But I'll bring up Jamie's comment just to put on the other side. You did touch on it, Brandon. It's not all refs. Got to be careful of the witch hunt, but there certainly has to be accountability. I think I haven't seen any like a ref makes a mistake, like he'll be on VAR as punishment for the weekend instead of refereeing, or it's like, shuffling around the fixture list. There has to be some system in place that isn't set up, in my opinion, by the same system that's regulating it. It's like self-assessing or self grading your performance. Not at that level, in my opinion, and that'd be a first step. But Toby, let you have the last comment or word on this Coote situation. How do you think this gets addressed moving forward, and what do you think the PGMOL has to do to improve?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if I'll go as far as Brandon and say they need to burn it down, but the PGML definitely does need to take a long, hard look at some of the referees. I know some of the games this year have been pretty bad. I can't think of the game. I think maybe it was Chelsea, Arsenal. I can't remember which one, but the officiating was horrible. It was that game where Arne Slot was just freaking out. You had Darwin Nunez just punching the air. I can't remember what game. That game was god awful. Probably the worst ref game I've seen in a long time. Um, well,
That was the Chelsea game.
Chelsea. Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, but in that game, I thought it was terrible. And we've seen a couple of games this year where the refereeing has just been bad. Not all of them's been bad. Some of them's been pretty decent. But definitely the PGMOL will need to take a long, hard look and need to address what needs to be changed, what doesn't need to be changed, etc., etc.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm curious to see all the pundits who've been silent for the past 2 days. It's been a long time. Haven't heard from Gary Neville, Jamie Carragher, correct me if I'm wrong, Michael Richards, Alan Shearer, Gary Lineker, all these podcasts. Like, not seeing any comments on this, which is really surprising. But we'll see moving forward. I'm going to bring up the questions that we commented on in the chat that were asked earlier in the stream. Just wanted to take this moment before I start bringing up those questions to, again, thank everyone who's been watching, everyone who's been joining the chat. We really do appreciate everyone who watches these streams. Thank you for participating. And I'll start going through those questions now. Let's see. They're more like specific questions, so I'll throw these out. Brandon or Toby, if you want to answer, just throw yourself off mute and take it down. Fun one. What is going on with Szoboszlai? Abdul, thank you for getting your question in.
So I'll take this one because I was watching a video yesterday by Panenka LFC, Panenka FC. If any of the viewers watch it, I recommend you go check this out. But he posted a video yesterday on Dominic Szoboszlai and how his role, like how basically he takes on a lot more off the ball, or what we don't really pay attention to, like passing, getting into open spaces, pressing, stuff like that, and how his role kind of extends not beyond, but he has a lot that he does that we don't see, which does take him away from creating opportunities and scoring. So I think it was a very interesting video. I wish I could link it in the chat, but I can't even access it, to be honest with you. But if y'all want to watch it, go to Panenka FC, go to his channel, watch it. About like 8-9 minutes, about 10 minutes maybe. It's very interesting, and it'll definitely get me thinking about Szoboszlai over the international break and like paying more attention to what he does during the games going forward.
The intangibles are definitely hard to always see in a game when you can look at the stat sheet like goals and assists, for sure. I think for me, Szoboszlai it just seems like he's in a funk. Like I never faulted his pressing and his running. Like he seems to have legs for days when he's in a game. He's big, he's physical, he can run, and he can definitely force players off the ball and make good contributions. I just find it baffling sometimes. His passing has been erratic. Goals, assists, stats that Slot has called out in press conference saying that he needs to score more. Hasn't done that yet. So I'm curious, like, agree with you, Toby, on what he does off the ball. There's a lot to appreciate in his game, but it does seem, I'm sure he himself, I wouldn't say he's having the best season so far. But Brandon, do you think this is something that just a minor blip, just a funk, he'll get out of it? Or do you think with Harvey Elliott coming back, Curtis Jones having great performances, do you think there's a real danger that Szoboszlai finds himself out of the starting 11, falling down the pecking order?
I can see that. I know that video Toby's talking about. I actually put it on my watch list today, so I'm going to be watching that soon. Yeah, Szoboszlai's, like we said, we're not going to fault his effort. His defensive work's great. I still think you could even put him back in like one of the one of the double pivots, and he would also perform very well there. Like the way that video is kind of being described to me, it's almost like Dominic is the Bobby Firmino of this system. Like he's the one that, you kind of, his numbers don't always correlate to the end product. It's all the other effort he's putting in, all the space he operates in, all the extra pressing, his ability to kind of like change the formation is kind of my understanding of the video, from going like maybe sometimes like a 4-2-3-1 to like a 4-1-4. I'm trying to do the math in my head. Yeah, it's like his ability to kind of roam and move and stuff like that. It like really changes the way like Liverpool can play within the game, like the constant changing formations, the constant new ways to kind of carve open a defense. But I'm with you. His issue has been, there's been times when the shot's on and he doesn't go for it. I don't know if he's at a crisis of confidence when he's shooting. His passing's just, for as technically good as he is, like his passing sometimes just mind-boggling. Like, how is somebody that we've seen do some of the stuff he does, or even with his national team and what he's done in games like last year? I don't think we talk about that Aston Villa goal we scored off a corner last year nearly enough, where it's like on the volley where he just keeps it low and like to the far corner. Like it's such a beautiful goal. I've seen like a couple times this week that it kind of mesmerizing how well he hits that. That somebody who can do that, sometimes just his passing is just so erratic. And there's sometimes he's too cute in the box. I think the Man United game, when it's like, just put it in the back of the net. We don't need to dance around. Just put it in the back of the net, and we'll ask questions about it later. But yeah, I think Curtis is doing very well right now. I've always been a believer in Curtis. I know some people got really down on him towards the end of last year, but people were also really down on Konate. I've always thought Curtis is very good for this team. You can kind of put him anywhere. He's going to do the job. I've been disappointed that Harvey's been hurt, because I thought he was the guy who's going to blow up in the slot system. So that's where my worry is for Szoboszlai, is that if Elliott does come back and it's the way I think it is, that Harvey may take that number 10 spot. And, it's him just fighting for different places in that midfielder when Harvey needs a break.
No, I'm leaning towards what you're saying, Brandon. Another question from the chat we have from CJ. Do you think Slot rates Nunez, Jota? Do you think he targets striker in the summer? I'll jump on this one first, just to potentially soften the blow. I'm curious. I think Jota, I really love Jota. I think his finishing is second to none on the team. Second to none. I think he's got the best conversion rate. I don't know. Let's take that aside. I think if there's a chance that falls in the box out of any player, I'd want it to be Jota. That's how I feel about him as a player, but he's always injured. And despite it being like impact injuries, like somebody falling on his leg, somebody like that kind of like falling on his chest, we haven't gotten a full season out of him since he started, and he's been out for a lengthy time. So I think that's a very crucial component on whether or not we sign a striker in the summer. Because on the flip side, for me, Nunez, he offers so much, but this past weekend's the perfect summary for him. Like, scores an incredible goal and then misses two chances, the one-on-one, and then for me, the header. That need to be goals. At least one of those needs to be goals. And maybe I'm being harsh and critical, but that kind of thing needs to evolve from his game or be removed. And I think until either Jota stays fit for a full season or Nunez can start finishing those chances, I personally think that there is that question of, do you think we get another striker? I think that it's a possibility. and I'd lean towards one of them going at the end of the year if that question isn't resolved. So that's how I view it. But Toby, what do you think about Jota and Nunez? Or do you think one of them or both of them are fine to lead the line moving forward, or do you think we need to go back in the summer and get a new striker?
So I'm gonna put an asterisk by this one because I've been pretty I say it every stream I've been very critical of Nunez throughout the season, but I'm willing to let him prove me wrong. With Nunez, I'm curious to see what they do with him because like do they want him to play striker or do they want him to potentially move to the wings maybe? Because the reason I say that is because some of his best moments this year has been with the ball at his feet, creating chances. Whenever I see him play striker, I see a lot of the offside stuff. This last game against Villa, we saw both sides of Nunez, good Darwin and bad Darwin. So, I mean, it's a curious case for Darwin, and I'm curious to see what they do there with him. Jota, I mean, I've always heard he's been the best finisher for us, but I'm just gonna put an asterisk by it. It's something that I'm keeping an eye on, and because we do need more goals from that position. I mean, it's the striker position. It's number nine position. You want a lot of goals coming from there, and I don't like relying on Salah and Nunez to score all of our goals. I would like to see more production from number 9.
Yeah, it seemed like the Bobby Firmino days. That was kind of why we brought Nunez in. It wasn't a like for like, and no, I agree with you. Number nines need to score goals, but I definitely don't want to like make it seem like feel like everyone in this channel, everyone on, you know, yeah, everyone in our channel is in terms of wants him to do well. I don't think anyone has ever like people have been harsh and been critical, and people may not like him, but everyone wants him to do well, and I hope he does do well. Brandon, I know you've been on the side of supporting Nunez, and definitely can see why you do. But how do you feel about that question of Jota and Nunez, and do you think we need another striker or look at it in the summer?
Yeah, kind of with what Toby's saying, like it's an asterisk because if Darwin starts bagging goals, we're not going to go sign a striker in the summer. If Jota stays healthy, we're not going to go sign a striker in the summer. It won't be the same area of need if and obviously best case scenario, both those things happen, and we have two very different players. Like I think Jota's heading ability is the most insane thing for somebody of his size, like his height, to be able to do what he does, like with headers. Remember that header he put Mane through a couple years ago against, I think, Arsenal? That was just out of this world good. That whole thing at the weekend with Darwin, like I'm frustrated as well with Darwin on things. I know they're touting the thing about how his shot conversions is so much better this year, but he's not shooting as nearly as much as he was last year. Like, if he's shooting the same, is it the same? Like, is it actually better, or is it the fact he's just not shooting as much? Like, if you score once out of 3 shots, doesn't mean you're not going to make only 1 out of 8. Like, we need a larger sample size before we start saying his conversion rates are so much better. But like, I saw it like in our own chat of, Mane's missed a couple of those, the one-on-one chance. Mane's missed those. And it's like, but I expected Mane to score. I wasn't 100% confident Darwin was going to score that. It was more like you're really hoping and wishing he scores that one. It's like, oh, he scored that one earlier, he'll bag this one. And then he wasn't even really that close, which is the more disappointing part. That, I'm a huge believer in Darwin. Everything is there. It, like, watching it, you see everything for an absolute world-beating striker, of just like a legend in the making striker, except for composure. And it's frustrating, but I still believe in the talent there. There's too much there for him to completely go to waste. I think you can still, at the end of the summer, maybe not sell him off. You can definitely move him into the wings. His passing is, I think, very underappreciated. His chance creations, very unappreciated. He's a chance magnet as well. Like, eventually he's going to get a run where he just scores every single one. We saw it. He did it at Benfica, where he had that year where anytime he got the ball, he put it in the back of the net. Maybe it happens for us. And, I sit here and hope and pray that it happens for us every single night. I get on my knees at my bed and pray for Darwin Nunez to start scoring goals like he did at Benfica. And I still believe he will do it at some point. If it's not as consistent, okay. But if he does it for 1 year, I'll be over the moon about it. But yeah, I think of the two, I think just the fact that Jota's a little bit older, and it's the fact that it's a little bit more injury issues than, form issues that, Darwin goes through. That if you had to say, like, which one would you think would leave at the end of the summer or at the summer, it'd be Jota, as much as I love him. But it's just, I think it's the fact that it's more injury issues than form issues. Because say what you want about Darwin, he's always available.
Totally get where you're coming from on that point. And Liverpool 12th man, seeing your comment, definitely didn't want to push this under the rug, and totally just wanted to break, because there are a lot of people in our channel who do really love Darwin and support him. Brendan's definitely been one of his supporters. Rigo wasn't able to be on the stream tonight, but he would be smacking me up for criticizing Darwin harshly, as he does in the chat frequently. But I haven't looked it up because I wanted to go off my memory. I think it was 36 goals, assists, goal contributions last season. And my issue with him, Brandon touched on it, is the conversion rate. It's been much better this season, but as Brandon said, he hasn't taken that many shots. Last season, he was the worst in the top 5 leagues for goal conversion rate. And that's the side of the game that has to be addressed. As a striker, you need to score goals. That's your job. Toby was talking about it earlier. Number 9 needs to score goals. And I think Darwin, you say 36 goals and assists. That's a good tally. But for me, if you're Liverpool's number 9, that should be like bare minimum. And given what Darwin missed last year and the quality of chances that he misses, I think that's the issue. But I'm not saying he can't fix that from his game. I'm saying that if he can do that, if he can finish that second chance against Aston Villa and put us 2-0 up, that's the kind of thing that needs to happen. And we've all agreed in our chat that this is the season where make or break for a lot of players, Darwin being one of them. But that second goal, that second chance, the one-on-one for me, that's the one that needs to be hit, because that relieves pressure. Like the 10 minutes after that, Aston Villa had way too many nervy moments in our box where that could have been 1-1. And that's why those simple chances need to be buried. That's where I stand on it. But I definitely appreciate where you're coming from, Liverpool 12th man, and like the support. I definitely don't want to put this as like I'm not supporting him, but just analyzing and criticism, it's not coming from a place of hate or like I hope he does well or anything like that. But Toby, I'll let you answer Liverpool 12th man's next one. Darwin is and was still playing like a false 9, and it's 55 goals and assists counting the last 2 years. I'll fact check that real quick. But Toby, what do you think about Darwin playing like a false 9? I'll leave that to you and Brandon. Do you have anything in response to the argument for Darwin? Like, let's put on the for Darwin side.
Yeah. So are we currently playing a false 9 right now? I don't think we are.
I think it depends on who's in there.
Past like couple seasons, like he was a little bit more in that kind of false 9. He wasn't super false 9, but it definitely kind of fell into a false 9 role in the last couple of years. Not so much this year, but the past couple of seasons.
Okay. Yeah, if he's playing the false 9, so it definitely does explain what drop off in numbers. Also, like we could. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Also, I would like to highlight Nunez. He has incredible potential. Like I'm going back, looking at some of his numbers right now. I'm going back to his time in Benfica. That 2021-2022 season, he scored 26 goals. So, and off 81 shots, that's pretty impressive. So he has a history of doing that, right? He can score goals. It's just a matter of him putting it all together, really. I lean on the fact that there is great potential with Darwin. Like I think he can score goals. I think he can contribute to the team. It's just a matter of what Drew said, composure, putting it all together, and that's continuing on this point that I made. Why I'm curious to see what Slot wants to do with him. I still believe that some of his best moments this year, and I want to keep highlighting this, some of his best moments this year have come with the ball out of speed. Think about that game against AFC Bournemouth where he scored the absolute beautiful goal to put 1-0 up, 2-0. I don't remember. It was a beautiful goal. Also, go back to Arsenal when instead of taking that shot, he makes the pass back to Salah, and Salah scores a game tying goal. There's he he has great potential. I really do believe that, and it's just a matter of him putting it all together.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement on there. Just wanted to come back with Darwin had 31 goals and assists in 54 matches last year, all competition. He has 5 goals and assists in 14 matches, all competition this season. So 36 and 68. For me, again, it depends. Honestly, at the end of the day, it's what Slot wants, and if he thinks that's the way to move forward, I think everyone can get behind that. I think we're all rooting for Darwin at the end of the day, so we can leave that there. But definitely appreciate the discussion, Liverpool 12th man. Definitely appreciate you getting your side of the at least the fence in on this, because that's what we want to chat here. Like, we're all Liverpool supporters at the end of the day. We all want the team to win, and really do appreciate the support that you have for the players. And I definitely don't want the impression that any of us here don't support him, because we all hope that he bangs it. Bring up the last question that I have pinned here. Do you think we will beat Real Madrid? So a fun unifying question for the last of the day. But we got through the heavy intense fixtures list since the last international break. I think this was the one everyone said that we would stumble over. This next one, we got some big games coming up as well. City, I think we play Southampton in the Premier League, then City. We have the League Cup game coming up. We have Real Madrid in the Champions League. So a couple of tasty matches coming back, but we'll leave it with those. We'll just Southampton, because we're not going to forget every game matters. Southampton in the Premier League, Manchester City and Real Madrid. Brandon, what do you think we're looking at in terms of expectations around those fixtures?
Oh, I'm going to go pretty conservative here. 3 wins, no goals conceded. We'll probably put up double-digit goals. We're going to absolutely throttle all 3 teams. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be slot ball at its absolute best. It's going to be absolutely sexy. It's going to be sexy Liverpool back from the dead, man. All 3 games are going to be just unwatchable from a neutral side, because they'll know the title race is over at that point. But seriously, hopefully 3 wins. I think we do get 3 wins. So we're playing Real Madrid at home. I think the City game's at home as well, which it doesn't matter if it's away. It's not like it's going to be full crowd there or anything like that. So, I mean, really, you take Southampton first. We care about Southampton more than we care about the other games. Got to beat Southampton. If you're going to win 3 games in a row, you got to win the first game. And Southampton's that first game. So we really need to be focused on that game more than anything. But to have the shot at, getting one on Real Madrid's always, tasty for the history, especially the recent history. We got to eventually kind of break that duck. We got to break that duck. So, yeah, it's gotta happen soon enough. If we keep playing them, eventually we're going to beat them. So it's going to be this time.
I'm in a similar boat with you, Brandon. I'm hoping 3 wins out of 3. I think we can do it. Real Madrid in particular, just because their injury crisis that they're experiencing, and their form isn't that great. So I think if anything, this is the chance to do it with the history that you said at Anfield. I think it's ripe for us to actually put one over for them for a change, a much needed change. Man City, be hell of a contest. Really hope we do get that over the line with 3 points. That'd be incredible. But as you said, Southampton's most important. I always remembered when we beat Man United 7-0. The very next game, we lost like Bournemouth or Nottingham Forest, somebody like that, 1-0. And it was absolutely I was so infuriated by that. But so every game is important. Next game, always most important. And you can't take any team lightly. But Toby, what do you think our chances are? I'll let you round out the chat tonight.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with the least sexy answer, perhaps the Nick Saban answer here. 1 game at a time. When we start getting ahead of ourselves, we start losing track of what happened, what's right in front of us, right? So one game at a time. As far as Real Madrid goes, like I like our chances. Right now, they're going through an injury crisis, so that's always helpful. I mean, I don't wish injuries upon any player, but it definitely does benefit us. And I think either you or Brandon mentioned it. Eventually, like, we don't have a great record against Real Madrid, and to be dare I even say it, this is Champions League is their tournament. I mean, 15 championships, and no other team has more. This is their championship. But eventually we will. I mean, they're whatever. But eventually we'll get a win, and it's looking good. In this go around.
Yeah, definitely not. Well, fingers crossed. I was going to say a better time to face them. International breaks ahead. Hopefully, we get everyone back safe and sound, fit and ready to play because we do have big games coming up. Southampton is still a big game because it's 3 points in the Premier League. So, game at his time, like you said, Toby. Just again, I only say this once a stream because I just hope everyone who's watching is enjoying the stream first and foremost. But if you did like the stream, please like and subscribe, share if you want to. We really do appreciate everyone who joins and watches. So most importantly, hope you enjoyed the stream. From Toby, Brandon, and myself, thank you all for watching. Have a good week. Hopefully, we'll see you next week.